talk about the holidays, since this is what we're in. We're in the holidays. The hollow days. They have theories out that suggest, of course, that we're living in a holographic universe that is hollow. It's just different projections of light. This is what's being broadcasted in your reality. This is along the lines of what the theory suggests. And in that, functioning as a light or a dark, you have the ability and now the response ability to bend light. Essentially, this is what you do. It's light in both definitions. What you're imagining in the sci-fi sense highlights and portrays the subtlety of what does pretty much go on sub-molecularly. So you have everything that you can see and can't see being made of this light. And not light in terms of sunlight or lamp light, but a light that's also known as dark matter. And we've talked about dark matter and the character or consciousness known as dark energy that animates and sustains and energizes all dark matter. So this applies to the bending of light. Light is also known as knowledge. Wow. Because now it sounds controversial. Because what are we saying? You have to bend knowledge. Bending knowledge does what? Does it pervert the truth? No. To bend knowledge is to apply it to the right scenario, the right situation. So, for example, let's say you follow a scripture about being fishers of men and the fact that the disciples couldn't catch any fish until they let their net down on the right side of the boat versus the left side of the boat, the right side of the boat versus the wrong side of the boat. So if you want to catch people and you find out that where you're dropping your proverbial net doesn't catch them in whatever arena that you're trying to attract people in, instead of focusing on the wrong side, you gotta focus on the right side. Where else can you drop your net, seeing that no one swam in over here? How else can you present your lure so that people swim into your fold? This is bending knowledge. You're still applying it, but you're just not literally looking for fishermen to convert into Christianity. But you're taking that scripture that is framed in Christianity, but you're applying it to reality. And this is not just indicative of the Bible, although this is where I first began to view life parabolically. This works with all information. And this will help you see the holographic reality and master the aspects of what it is to bend light or to bend knowledge, which eventually will seem as if you're just physically bending and manipulating matter right out of thin air, because the principles can't be seen. But those principles that cannot be seen are creating and animating what can be and what will eventually be seen. So welcome to the holidays. Welcome to the hollow days. A lot of people are in the days in this holographic universe. They're in the days. I've been in a daze different times in my life, different months, weeks, years, even in a hollow daze. Life didn't have the solidified meaning to me now that it, I mean, yeah, it didn't have, it wasn't as solid, my purpose. Wasn't as solid then as it is now. Wasn't as direct. So I was in the hollow days. Now let's look at the other way that holiday sounds. So we talked about the hollow versus solid. Now let's talk about the hallow versus the non-sacred. Hallow day, holiday, hallowed ground. Reverting to the scripture where the Lord told Moses, take off your sandals. You're standing on holy ground. The ground that you're standing on is hallowed. The ground that you're standing on is sacred. The ground that you're standing on is secret. The secret day. What is the secret day? It's the light that shines in you that no one can see yet. This is what it is. It's the hollow day, the hallowed day. Every day is just a regular day, but the light that shines within you makes it a holiday, a hallowed day. Because your body consists of, according to that cosmology, the same soil that you stand on is what your body consists of. So knowing that, the ground that covers your skeleton is just as holy, just as hallowed as the ground Moses stood on in the presence of the burning bush. Hallowed ground. So he told him what? Take off your sandals. Take off what? Take off what you were already walking on. Take off. Just take off what the path once was, the principles. Take off what is considered face value. Take that part off. Take off your sandals. Face value is the sandals. Take the sandals off. Because where you're standing now is secret. So you're going to have to, in order to get the secret out of it, you're going to have to look past the sandal. So you got to take off your sandals in order to see the secret. It's going to be bare. The secret made bare foot, bare feet, standing on hallowed ground. You understand? So shout out to Moses. Shout out to the angel that appeared to him in the burning bush. Shout out to the authors who wrote the story, because it doesn't have to be real. You see, in order to get the power of it, because power is in wisdom. Wisdom is where the power of God is, not in whether or not you can believe a story. You don't have to believe the story at all. If you apply what the principles suggest, guess what? You're living the scriptures more than the person who believes the story. Mind, body, and soul, but doesn't embody the principles. The hollow day. All right, more holiday talk. How do you embrace this era, this age that's coming in, that will come in eventually, known as the divine child? You can bring this age in any time for yourself, and it's an age of pure magic, mind you. Pure magic, where it gets very magical, where you live in a fantasy. Fantasy and reality, they can become the same thing in terms of manifestational speed, in terms of the way synchronicities fold out. You know, all of these things can happen. You take the title of the song Silent Night. Silent night, holy night. Most of our night, our darknesses, are not silent. When you stop to think, sometimes by the end of the day, or as you drift off into sleep, that night is usually not silent. And I don't mean in terms of your neighborhood, because you could live in a very quiet neighborhood that you could hear a pin drop in at night, but your night still be noisy because of the thoughts that are racing through your mind. Silent Night was one of the songs that you could really pretty much consider the soundtrack to the nativity scene surrounding Jesus's birth. So you have the birth narrative, and in that, one of the main things was how packed it was and commercialized even during that time is what the backdrop of the story is. There was no room for them in the end because I believe this was also the time of, I believe, either a Jewish holiday or a Jewish census, but that was taking place at that particular time. So there were a lot of pilgrimages being made originally around that time. But essentially, the reason why the babe, the divine child, was presented in a barn, in a manger, because there was no room in the inn. It was too packed. There were no vacancies. So you're coming into a full world. You have to understand that the world has no vacancies. Another way to say it is nature abhors a vacuum. So there's no vacancies. There's no room in the inn. Understanding the divine child, you understand that inside of the structures that represent maybe commercialism to an extent, maybe worldliness to an extent, maybe traditionalism to an extent, because all of these factors are at play in the storyline. So understanding the storyline will help you to interpret the age or the stage of the divine child. Because you've heard or have been hearing talks of the divine masculine, the divine feminine, but not really the divine child. This aspect is pretty much not alluded to yet. But just to add it to the Trinity of existence, we're going to touch on it here. So it's a silent night is what has to happen first. So your inner thoughts, your inner world, it has to be quieted. They talk about it in the Far East, the importance of quieting the mind. To help you achieve the quieting of the mind, focus on taking deep, slow breaths. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Do it as many times as you want. But this is one of the best ways to quiet the mind. To quiet the night, to get your silent night, to get your night silent versus noisy. Noisy nights. Coming fresh out the club, your ears are still ringing from the music. You thinking, man, what I'm gonna do tomorrow? Or you're thinking everything, whatever you think when you just got in from the club, or whatever you think when you had a super busy day. Have you guys ever had that experience where you're just starting a new job and it's so entailing mentally because you're doing a totally new activity versus your last job is a new environment, everything, where you actually have a dream that you're still at work? I've had it on almost every job I've ever had. It happens when you put everything into your job. Like if you're one of those kind of people, you may end up having a dream that you're still at work. Because the night, your inner night, was so full of the sounds, the reality, the consciousness, the light of work, that you end up having a dream about it. Even the scriptures say if you think about something long enough, you'll dream about it. These things are said in both the sacred and the secular. What do we call that? A universal truth. Both you and general consensus can confirm. We would call that universal truth, aka the truth. A silent night, which again they reiterate by saying holy night. Silent night and holy night are not two different things. To say holy night after silent night is basically to say silent night twice. Silent night, because holy night ties into that. But let me add the other aspect of what holy is in and of itself according to the context. Holy means to be separate, to be set aside, to be distinguished, to be different. It's a marking of distinction. That's what holiness is about. Not so much being sinless as much as being separate. So you have to have a holy night to go with a silent night. It has to be a separate night, a separate inner space. Separate inner space and quietness of mind. So first, now that the mind has been quieted, silent night, now you have holy night. Now you have a separation. Now you have the hallowed mind. It's been quieted so that it can be allowed to be holy. It has been quieted. The night is silent so that it can become holy. So the mind is quieted so that it can become distinguishable, distinct, powerful. Because it already is. What you're doing is you're allowing it to be. So you're taking the constraints off. You're not causing the mind to be powerful. You're just taking any aspects of powerlessness off of the mind, like a blanket, so that you can let the mind expand. That silent night, holy night, and the arrival of the divine child. So that's the source, a source of magic, a source of faith, a source of quantum mechanics, if you will. Quietness of mind, separateness of thought. One thing will naturally facilitate the other. Once the mind is quieted, then the inspiration is allowed to flow. Versus how we usually do it. We try to jump into the noise, into the noisy night, and pull holiness out of it. And you can't do it that way. But naturally, that's what we do. We sifted through the roaring ocean of thoughts first to see what we can glean, rather than allowing that roaring ocean to be still and as smooth as glass, so that with the casting of just one pebble, our presence can reverberate through the entire matrix. A ripple, or also a jingle bell, right? There's another one. To live by the jingle, to die by the jingle. This is the art of the single. To live by the jingle, to die by the jingle. This is the art of the single. So not only in the industry, but outside of the industry, everyone's trying to come up with the single. And when the single wasn't singular enough, you came out with the snippet. You can't go any smaller than the snippet. The bells is the alarm. I'll say, well, I have a bell. You may not literally have a bell, but the symbol of an alarm clock will be the clock with the bell attached. Bells signal the beginning and ending of rounds. And one-on-one combat sports, the bell. The bell signals the beginning of class and the end of class. The bell. But the jingle, what is the jingle? The jingle is groupthink. The jingle is your top 100, your top 40. The jingle is what everybody sings. Is a jingle. Every day I'm hustling. What is that? That's a jingle. You'll hear jingle bells. You'll hear jingle alarms. Your business could fall apart if you don't have your every day I'm hustling jingle bell set. You can fall in complacency, miss out on business opportunities. But if every day I'm hustling is somewhere deep in your subconscious as a jingle bell, an alarm clock, a bell that's attached to a jingle, then you'll never slip all the way into complacency. You might be on the threshold of depression before hearing some jingle that rings a bell and wakes you up.